Hey team, welcome to the creating a Breakglass account. Now, creating a Breakglass is pretty straightforward, but in Delinea we want to make sure it's following two different principles. First one is that it has a very long password, and the second is that it's going to disable multi-factor authentication. The risk appetite for every organization is different, so disabling MFA is obviously a reduction to some level of a security factor. And this account will be a privileged account. Please make sure you do your due diligence for your organization and your specific needs. This is a helpful guide, but only if it fits your criteria. I bear no responsibility for this configuration. The first thing that we're going to want to do is go over to Access under Users, and we're going to have our current users here. Now, there's a few options for users, but what we want to do is add a local user. So in this event, it's going to ask us for a username. Now, please make sure if you already have single sign-on configured, that you don't make the username the same as your domain. If you do this, when you try and log into this Breakglass account, it's going to change you over to SSO. So we want to make sure the username doesn't match your fully qualified domain name. So in this case, I'm just going to go Breakglass at TWC of the account that I'm going to use, and we'll give it a quick display name. We're going to untick send email invitation for user setup, and we're going to go generated, and it's going to generate a nice password for us. Now this password is about 20 characters long, so I recommend at least having a password this long. If you can make it longer, go for your life, please make it longer. Now, what I would recommend as well is after you've created this profile is go ahead and write this password down. And if you can store it in a physical safe away from other people, that's the best place to store this password. It's going to have administrative privileges over the entire tenant or the entirety of Delinea, and you want to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands and is only going to be used in the event of a Breakglass. So if we just hit next, it's going to ask us for a membership type. We can just hit next again, and it's going to ask us which permissions we want. Now, this is going to be a systems administrator, which is a platform admin role in this instance. So you just want to select the largest amount of privileges as possible. So under advanced settings that you can see down here, it's going to ask us to require a password change at next login. We're not going to want to do that, so we're just going to click edit and untick. Now, the next thing that we want to do is remove multi-factor authentication from this user. Now, that seems like an easy thing. Usually it's just a checkbox, but because Delinea is designed around privilege and around identity, there are a few extra steps. We can see at the top here, there's MFA redirection. This is actually not where we want to be, so please ignore this. The first thing that we're going to want to do is go over to settings and authentication profiles. Now, we can see that there's some profiles already here, and the default ones are all enabled for different things. I've already created one called no MFA. We're going to create another one that removes MFA for this example. So we're going to go remove MFA. I'll give it a good description to make sure you know what this is about. The Breakglass accounts to remove MFA. Now, we see that there's two challenges. For the first challenge, we want to put in a password, which is a typical login, but then you can put in a second challenge. This is the one that we want to avoid. So we don't want a second challenge for this authentication profile. And we're going to go ahead and hit save. Before we create the identity policy, we actually need to create a group. So we're going to go to groups, and we've got a few groups here, but we're going to call this one remove MFA. Save. We're going to go into that group itself and go to members, and we're going to assign the Breakglass account that we just created as a member of this group. And it should be the only one in there. Great. Now we can go back to settings and we can create that identity policy. So if I go to identity policy, and we're going to go add policy, make sure that we enable it. Let's go Breakglass policy. and we're going to assign it to a specific group. So this is why we created our group, and it's going to ask us which one. So we're going to go remove MFA as the group that we want to assign this policy to. Great. Now that our policy is created, we're going to go ahead and click on it so that we can get into it. And right now it's only assigned to that specific group with the one account in it. But if we hit the authentication tab, we can see that there's no authentication policy or authentication profile assigned to it. So now if we hit edit, we want to select the profile we just created, which was remove MFA, and make sure we enable that one. Save. So what have we done? We've basically created a Breakglass account and made sure that when it signs in, it's only going to be asked for a password and not a password and a second step of MFA. So you can go ahead and make that authentication profile whatever you like. If you want to create security settings, security questions as your settings, and that works better for your organization, then go for it. Now, the last thing that we want to do is actually test to make sure that this works. So I'm going to go ahead and try and log into my account. If I go next, I can confirm that there is no multi-factor. So we can see an empty profile here called Breakglass, no secrets, no nothing. But what you want to check as well is the settings. So if we go into settings here, we can see all of the settings that are required. And if we go into Secret Server, we've actually got a limited amount of settings in Secret Server. Now this can be fixed, but what we've done is we've created a profile, and that profile doesn't have any permissions in Secret Server. It only has permissions within Platform. I'll cover this in another video and leave it in the guide. So at the end of the guide, you'll be able to see if you have this issue where you can't see the Secret Server settings, how to go about resolving it.